Good afternoon, teacher. My name is Lorena Correal, and today I want to talk to you about general facts of Canada. Um, my work group during the complete unit was Paola Andrea Cuervo, Julian Ricardo Romero, and Victor Gabriel Ross. Unfortunately, yesterday I couldn't go to the face-to-face meeting, and for that reason I present today the anti-melee test. And that is the reason also that I use today the Canada information and the same information that yesterday they exposed in the face-to-face meeting. Okay, so go ahead to the point. I want to ask you to this interesting audience if you heard before about facts or interesting facts of Canada. It's important to know in the first part some characters about its population. For example, the 81% of that population lives in cities, so they can tell us about what is the behaviors and what is the um, goals that they have in their jobs, in their economy, in the cultural facts, and in the other items and issues that we will look for in this presentation. Also, in the other hand, we have the environment facts, and Canada has 31% of forests in the complete of its land. So it's interesting because they have a green politic that help to contribute an important part of the economy in Canada, but also with a clean air and with a sustainable development inside the country. Just as the introduction about this amazing world of Canada. But today we review different topics, and that are Canadian government, Canadian economy, Canadian transnational issues, Canadian cultural facts, and Canadian bilateral agreements. After that, we'll review some questions and maybe some comments that you have about this presentation. In the first parts, we can speak about the Canadian government. The Canadian government has a different government type. Why? Because they have a federal parliamentary democracy, and that government type works under a constitutional monarchy. The reason is that Canada it's be a part of Commonwealth realm, and that is a system where the different countries that in a moment were a part of the United Kingdom colony continue with a title or advantage of um, be a part of the kingdom of the United Kingdom. So that for that reason has a different kind of democracy, and it's a mix between parliamentary and democracy government. Also, Canada has administrative division. It has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Um, one of them is Alberta, British Columbia, Quebec, that maybe are the most popular in the world, but there are others that are very interesting and that we can introduce to know more of that population and more of that land inside that administrative divisions. The third interesting issue in the government, sorry, um, Canadian, is the political parties and the leaders. Canada has five divisions. We're talking about political parties. The first one is Bloc Québécois. Um, that the name is French because it's from Quebec, and in Quebec they speak French. The second one is Conservative Party of Canada, or CPC. The third one is the Green Party. The fourth one is the Liberal Party, which has the current Prime Minister. And the fifth one is New Democratic Party, or NDP. Okay, so now that we have talked about the main facts about Canada's government, let's talk about its economy. Okay, the economy in Canada, in the first part, is a high living standard. In Canada, people live with extraordinary standards of living, and that report is from the United Nations. The second point is the Canada have a excellent growing economy. Um, so we need to also remark about the situation that they live in 2008 for the crisis, the economic crisis in the North America area. And the third important thing in the Canadian economy is the sustainable development, which is an important part of the politics and the plans of the government of Canada. Um, to say some indicators, economic indicators, we can talk about the GDP, and the GDP with a real growth. The GDP in 2017 or was around 1,764 trillion. The GDP real growth in 2017 was at 3%, and the GDP per capita was 48,100 dollars, which is the most of um, important GDP per capita around the world. Employment rate is at 6.5%. The population below poverty line is 9.4%. And if you want to compare that, for example, that percentage with a Colombia percentage, you can see a huge difference because in Colombia we have around the 50% of population in a poverty line. Um, Also, we can see the distribution in family income from the Gini index, and it is 32 one percent. The other is taxes and other revenues that have a 38%. The other one is a central bank discount rate that is at 1%. Um, and the other is the exports that have a 433 billion. The exchange rate, the Canadian dollars per US dollars, it's $1.31 in 2017. Okay, so here we have some important products that Canadians have in the international trade. Most of them are raw materials, and for example, like aircrafts, or maybe or aircrafts, or maybe motor vehicles and parts. or industrial machinery uh, comes from the raw materials that they export, like chemicals, plastics, wood pulps, timber, crude petroleum, electricity, aluminium, etc. So that is the reason that the economy Canadians is um, very strong. Um, we can review that economy to understand the transnational issues too, and we too need to understand that because they have a regular economy and a strong economy, they need also a good relation with the neighbors in the region, but also with the countries like are similar in around the world too. So the characteristic of uh, Canada's transnational issues are a peaceful country, a strong institutions, a respectful international laws, and also a open door for refugees from many parts of the world. Um, for that reason, in Canada, around 80,000 Colombians live there in Canada in a condition of refugees. Also, Canada received around 7,000 Chinese people in its country, and with the same situation, the Haiti people um, uh, choose Canada like a good destination to do a refugee situation, and for that reason, Canada has around 6,000 of Haiti people inside the country. Also, Canada has a good illicit drugs cooperation with U.S. government because in North America they have um, the worst situation inside of America about consume and traffic of drugs. Okay, so when we understand the government and also the economy, we need to move to understand what happened with the cultural facts. So, for that reason, we will speak about some basic cultural facts like greetings, like communication style, personal space and touching, the eye contact, the use of time, the gender issues, and the taboos. It's important to understand that Canada have an important part in the country that continue very conservative and continue with the mentality of traditional families, but also have the other part of the country is and all and the most of the young people inside the country think about gender issues or maybe refugees or war issues in the politics very different from the conservative people. Um, for that reason, it's important when you want to, for example, change from normal cultural facts or basic cultural facts to the business cultural facts to understand those points that I said before. Um, don't forget if you want to go and to do a business in Canada, the dress for business. So yes, they have an important part that are young and maybe is open mind, but please, uh, dress in the major cities is more formal than in rural areas. And I said in the introduction that the 81% is population that lives in cities. So the most of the people uh, dress with a format for business situations. Mm, Also, it's important um, use correct information in the business cards because you need to remember that they speak English and French. So it is important to um, um, have that fact when you want to close a negotiation with them. In the meetings are very important. The time you need to pay attention to the um, size of your group in the meeting. If you have a small group, you need a specific behavior, but if you have a big group, you have other behavior. And also, it's usually that they give a present when they want to know a new person, or maybe when they want to give a greeting or a grateful situation to other person. Mm, In the students' cultural facts, it's important remember the class rules. They use uniform. The punctuality it's very important to the difference like Latin America culture. Also, in the socializing, you need to understand that it's important to respect the time to speak and to be quiet in the case that you need to consider that it's no time to introduce you or maybe to interrupt you, that situation. So be careful with that because they are very sensitive with that maybe introductions that are normal in Latin American culture but not in the Canadian culture. Okay. Um, in Canadians bilateral agreements, we need to introduce two different bilateral agreements. In the first one, we have the free trade agreements, but in the other hand, we can review the organizations um, that Canada wants to be a part. So, in the free trade agreements, Canada has countries of North America, European Community, and work in countries in Central America and South America like Honduras, Panama, Colombia, Peru, Costa Rica, and Chile. In Asia, they have a free agreement with Israel and India. Okay, and in the other hand, that we have the organization, they be a part of Inter-American Development Bank, Economic Commission for Latin America, Organization of American States, and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The last one, Colombia, uh, um, joined in the last month. Okay, so I know that maybe that was a lot of information, but it is very important to um, have a short conclusion about the complete oral presentation. Let's summarize some important facts to keep in mind when you want to know the main points about Canada. So the first one is the political area. Remember that Canada has federal parliamentary democracy under a constitutional monarchy. Second, remember the relative to economy, and the option of exports is an important component of economy inside the country. The third conclusion that we can say now, it's about transnational issues, and it is Canada is a peaceful country with a strong institution and respect of international laws. Um, about culture, remember that Canadians are ordered, friendly, and polite. Respect the space of them, respect the time, and respect the words that you say with them. In business, remember that they are formal and speak English and French. So don't forget that your business card need to have both language. And in the five issue, we need to keep in mind the relation of bilateral agreements. So Canada have trades with several countries of America, Asia, and Europe, but also the countries be a part of the most important international organizations in America, but in the world too. Um, it's important that you um, um, don't forget this information because we want to invite you to visit the amazing country of Canada. Um, we are sure that you will not forget this wonderful experience because Canada is an incredible and amazing land to discover. So that is just the conclusion that give you a open door to a new world. So if somebody has any question about this session or maybe has a comment, it is welcome to speak and to tell us what they think. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to show you and to have the opportunity to explain you general facts about Canada. So this is the introduce to this beautiful country. Thank you very much.